My name is Daniel, and the night my wife started bleeding is a memory burned into my soul, one that began with pure panic and ended with something I could never have imagined. My wife, Emily, was 9 months pregnant with our first child, and every day had been filled with equal parts excitement and fear. We'd been married for 5 years, and she'd always dreamed of becoming a mother. The nursery was ready, the hospital bag was packed, and the name, Noah, if it was a boy, had been chosen months ago. Everything felt perfect, until that night. It was around 11 p.m. when I woke to Emily's trembling voice. "Daniel," she whispered, her tone shaking. "Something's wrong." I turned on the bedside lamp, and my heart froze. There was blood on the sheets, more than I could process in that instant. Panic surged through me. I grabbed my phone, called 911, and tried to keep her calm while the dispatcher gave me instructions. "Stay with me," I told her, forcing my voice to sound steady even though my hands were trembling. Within minutes, the ambulance arrived, and I rode with her to the hospital, holding her hand tightly the whole way. Her grip was weak, but her eyes stayed locked on mine, terrified, pleading. When we arrived, doctors and nurses rushed her into the emergency room. I wasn't allowed inside. I stood outside those double doors, heart hammering, praying under my breath that both of them, my wife and our baby, would be okay. Every minute felt like an hour. Then finally, a doctor came out, tall, calm, and far too quiet. His face was unreadable, and that scared me more than anything. "Mr. Carter," he said softly. I nodded. "Your wife is stable, but there's something we need to talk about." He led me into a small consultation room. The world felt blurry, muffled, like I was underwater. "What happened?" I asked. "Was it the baby? Is he okay?" The doctor hesitated, glancing down at the file in his hands. "Your wife suffered from placental abruption," he explained. "It's serious, but we managed to stop the bleeding in time. The baby is showing signs of distress, so we're preparing for an emergency C-section." Relief flooded me. At least they were both alive. But then his tone changed. "There's something else." He lowered his voice. "During the routine blood test, we found a genetic marker inconsistency. I'm sorry to say this, but the baby's blood type doesn't match yours." For a moment, I didn't understand. "What do you mean it doesn't match?" I asked, my throat dry. "It's common, right?" The doctor looked at me with a kind of pity I'll never forget. "No, Mr. Carter. Based on the results, you are not the biological father." The world went silent. I couldn't breathe. I stared at him, my mind trying to reject the words. "That's impossible," I whispered. "There must be a mistake." He nodded gently. "We'll confirm it after delivery, but I wanted to prepare you." Then he left me alone in that cold, white room with my thoughts spinning out of control. I felt the walls closing in. My wife, the woman I loved more than anyone, had carried another man's child, and I had spent 9 months talking to her belly, singing lullabies, planning our future. Anger, heartbreak, disbelief, it all collided inside me. But even through the pain, one thought stayed clear: she's still in there, fighting for her life. And whatever she had done, I couldn't let hate replace the love I once had. When they finally wheeled Emily out of surgery, I stood by her side. She was pale, weak, and half-conscious. Is the baby okay?" she whispered. I nodded numbly. "He's fine. They're taking care of him." Tears pooled in her eyes, and I saw guilt flicker across her face. She knew. Before I could speak, she whispered, "Daniel, I never meant for you to find out like this." My stomach dropped. "So it's true?" I asked quietly. She looked away, ashamed. "It was one mistake. Before we even knew we could have a child. I thought it didn't matter anymore." I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but I couldn't. I just stood there, my heart breaking all over again. Days later, after she was discharged, I couldn't look at the baby without feeling torn apart. He was innocent, yet every feature reminded me of what she'd done. But when I held him for the first time, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and something inside me softened. I realized this child didn't ask for any of this. He just wanted love. Weeks passed in silence. Emily and I barely spoke. She cried every night, apologizing, promising she'd do anything to make it right. But some wounds don't heal quickly. Then one evening, while feeding the baby, I looked at him again, those small, peaceful eyes, and I knew what I had to do. I turned to Emily and said, "I don't forgive what you did, but I'm not going to make this child suffer for it. I'll raise him as my own, but after that, you and I are done." She broke down, begging for another chance, but I'd already made my peace. A year later, we finalized our divorce. I got full custody after she admitted she wasn't ready to be a mother. Now, when I watch my son, yes, my son, take his first steps, I realize that life sometimes breaks you before it gives you meaning. That night in the ER, I thought my world ended when the doctor spoke. But in truth, it began, because love, I've learned, isn't about blood. It's about choice. And I chose him.